Hi there.
Chester.
Hey, Todd.
Good to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Chester has
How's it
decided
going?
it's time to start barking.
Of course. Of course. How fast are you on the mute button?
Yeah,
The
right.
dogs.
I'm pretty fast if I think about it. If I don't think about it. They usually get the best at me. And then the last time it happened, I thought I muted it and I didn't. So everybody heard me yell, Chester. Get it out.
Shut up.
Yeah. So how's everything going for you?
Everything's going good. Going well. We're halfway through December. Yay.
Yeah.
It's not my favorite month
Oh
of the
yeah.
year. Yeah.
Well, how's
It's
everything?
okay.
How's everything with your family or your particularly your
Dad's
father?
Dad's doing good. Better a little bit. I heard a story today that he was in his power chair, his electric wheelchair,
Mhm.
and went down the driveway, which drove it himself out the door and down the driveway. I'm
Wow.
like, where exactly? Because considering when I saw him last, he had to have help rolling over. So,
Wow. That's
yeah,
a big change.
that's a pretty big change. And it was probably extremely hard for the care providers that were there, the physical therapist or occupational therapist, to get him up and in that thing. But they're doing it to incent him to work at it,
Mhm.
I'm sure. So that's good.
Yeah.
I'll be back down there in January. So.
Okay. Well,
Yep.
good.
You got a
Hi,
house full
person.
for Christmas coming?
We're going to have a house full of local orphans, I call them. So, when we first moved here, we realized that we didn't have any family here. And so
Right.
we kind of connected with other people who were in the same boat, like the Larsons and
Uh-huh.
a few other folks. But we're gonna we didn't do it last year because of the COVID stuff, but we're gonna
Right.
start again this year.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
That's
so
good.
I think we've got about 10 on the list already.
Uh-huh. Excellent.
Yeah.
Very good.
So it'd be strange not to have any kids home for Christmas, but such is life.
Even Cassidy's not coming home?
Even Cassidy's not coming home. She's working. She's discovered the joy of double pay,
Oh.
holiday pay.
Yeah. Well, okay. Can't falter for that, I suppose. It would be
Yeah,
nice to see him, but maybe seeing her under some less pressure than a holiday would be more fun anyway.
true.
Yeah.
True. Yeah. So, hi everybody.
Hi,
Hi.
Todd.
Hey, Lynn.
Hi, Betsy. Hi,
Hello.
Dorothy. Hi, Darrell. All right, let's get this meeting to order and get things done.
Okay, let's do it.
Get things done.
Taskmaster.
Do we have a quorum?
Oh, not quite. Doesn't look like it. I was just checking my email. Darrell, I just got yours. I think I have an email that I probably should read before this meeting from Rebecca, but I'm a little bit behind today. I just got home.
Okay.
And I just sent you also, Darrell, this is not related to this business, but I'm happy to do the slides on Christmas Eve.
Oh, are you? Okay.
Yeah, I can do that.
Do you want to let Deborah know?
I did. I replied all to that, to
Great.
your email. Yeah.
Thank you.
There's Dick Steele.
Greetings.
Greetings.
Comes Catherine. Not sure if I've heard anything from Candace. I don't think so. You know, was she at the ops team meeting this week? Yeah, she was, wasn't she?
No, actually, she wasn't there. I think she
Oh.
was not feeling well yesterday.
Oh, it's Craig.
Seems like I saw an email from her a while ago, though, with her report, but it didn't have an attachment. She said that it was attached, but there wasn't an attachment.
Oh,
She just got it sent out.
Oh, okay.
she did.
Yeah, but I think she'll be here because she called me today to clarify something while she was putting the report together.
Oh,
She said-
good.
You said she'd see me, so.
Okay. I don't see anything.
See where that was. Not seeing it now.
Are you looking for the email from Candace?
Yeah.
The ops team attachment? I got it too at 5:57 p.m.
All
So,
right. Did it
5
have,
minutes ago.
did it have the attachment?
It
Yeah,
has
it
the,
was
yes. And the title is Oops.
oops. Yeah, subject is
Oh,
oops.
okay, I didn't get that one yet anyway. You refresh my,
That's because she didn't address it to you. So
Yeah,
let me
no,
send it to you.
He's on there. I see him.
Is he? Okay.
Yeah.
All
Do you want
right.
me to forward it?
oh, I see it.
You got
There it just came through. Yep. There it is.
A few more minutes. She must have been busy with her emails too, just right before the meeting started.
Yeah.
Looks like it's just us, guys.
All right.
That's interesting.
That's because people trust that the church is in trustworthy and capable hands.
Either that or they're, off for their Christmas vacations already.
Right, saying, why is the board meeting in December? Oh, here comes our co-captain.
So, yeah, I don't know that you can notice it, but if you look at Dorothy's screen, you actually see whoever is talking right now.
Oh,
You can
it's
see
you.
me. And yeah. Hi.
I noticed that earlier myself.
Little
there you-
reflection there.
Yeah.
I just heard from Candace and
Okay.
she said she texted you and Todd. She can't find the Zoom link. I told her it was on my Gmail and that's how I always get
Oh,
here.
okay. I can forward that to her.
Great.
Okay,
It's the
Thank
church.
you.
It's the church email. Usually I just type in UUCS. And
that's what I,
it's the first one that comes up. So I'll just forward it to her.
okay, good.
Thanks, Todd.
Sure.
quiet group tonight.
So Lynn.
Yeah.
I want to show you something.
Oh my gosh.
Sweetie,
Nice.
first.
Who
We're-
is that?
We're dog sitting for Gordon and Jean Larson this weekend.
Oh, I
His
didn't
name
know
is
they.
Banjo. He's delightful.
Banjo.
I've
Is
been
he a
missing a
lab?
dog, so, pardon?
Is he a lab?
No, he's a blue heeler or cattle dog.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
I know Banjo well. Banjo has spent many a week with us over the years.
Oh, good. Yeah, he's a sweet dog.
Yeah,
Mhm.
he and Chester love to play, but I had to stop it after I got my gardens put together because they just would run and tear everything up. I mean,
Oh,
just-
yeah.
especially Banjo. He had no boundaries, he just crashes into whatever. So
Right.
Oh,
yeah.
how old is he?
I think he's 12.
Yeah, I thought I could see gray hair from
Yeah,
here.
he's getting a little stiff. I mean, he's not nearly as active as you think cattle dogs are, but that's just because of his age, I think.
Oh,
Very sweet.
Yeah.
here she comes. Hi, Candace. You're muted still. There we
Hi.
go.
Yay!
Found us. You found us. Good.
The game's
right.
on.
The gang's all here. So well, let's the gang welcome Dorothy and Todd to our Monday evening meeting. No,
And
just
Tom.
kidding. Well, Tom's always at our Monday evening
Right.
meeting. So this is actually a Wednesday board meeting, guys. It looks like the regular crew though for Mondays, but so let's call the meeting to order. It looks like it's 6:09, Dorothy. I don't know of any changes that need to be made to the agenda. Anything anybody wants to add to or delete from? Nothing like that. Okay. So we just need a motion to approve the minutes, or we need to do that by consensus if anybody or any changes from the minutes from last month from our November meeting. Oh, great. So we can approve those by consensus. Everybody okay with that? Thumbs
Yep.
up.
Yep.
Sounds good. Excellent. All right, moving right through things. Todd, do you have some opening words for us?
I do. They're going to be a little bit longer today than usual, but I wanted to read these. You've probably often heard, or at least sometimes heard me downplay the 7 principles. Not because I dislike the 7 principles, but I dislike that people think that epitomizes our much richer, longer tradition, because those principles have only been around since the 1980s. And they're wonderful principles, but there's a lot of ways to phrase the things that we value. And I just happened today to come across this list of the affirmations from the Council of Secular Humanism. And so I thought I would read these and see how you resonate with them. Not that I'm going to take a test, but just, that's sort of the question. So, okay, so can you hear me okay?
Yep.
All right. We are committed to the application of reason and science to the understanding of the universe and to solving of human problems. We deplore efforts to degenerate human intelligence, to seek to explain the world in supernatural terms, and to look outside nature for salvation. We believe in an open and pluralistic society, and that democracy is the best guarantee of protecting human rights from authoritarian elites and repressive majorities. We are committed to the principle of separation of church and state. We are concerned with securing justice and fairness in society and with eliminating discrimination and intolerance. We want to protect and enhance the earth, to preserve it for future generations, and to avoid inflicting needless suffering on other species. We respect the right to privacy. Mature adults should be allowed to fulfill their aspirations, to express their sexual preferences, to exercise reproductive freedom, and to have access to comprehensive and informed health care, and to die with dignity. We believe in the common moral decencies, altruism, integrity, honesty, truthfulness, responsibility. Humanist ethics is amenable to critical, rational guidance. Two more. We believe in optimism rather than pessimism, hope rather than despair, learning in the place of dogma, truth instead of ignorance, joy rather than guilt or sin, tolerance in the place of fear, love instead of hatred, compassion over selfishness, beauty instead of ugliness, and reason rather than blind faith or irrationality. And finally, we believe in the fullest realization of the best and noblest that we are capable of as human beings.
Love that.
Very nice.
Yeah. Oh, I love that too. Where do we get a copy?
Well, I will copy it and send it to you guys. This is out of a book called How to Live a Good Life, and it's about finding your philosophy of life, if you will, your personal philosophy. And so it goes through a lot of different things: Buddhism, Confucianism, Taoism, but it also includes humanism. So.
Wow, that is great. Thank you, Todd.
Mhm.
Tom, did you want to say something?
Well, just, you know, for those of us who consider ourselves secular humanists and belong to the, you know, the Humanist Association, you know, that's also fundamental. I'm surprised that more Unitarian Universalists are members of the American Humanist Association. It's just right up our alley. Thank you, Todd.
You're welcome.
Okay, well, President's report, bylaw workshop. Anybody want to know what's going on at the workshops? I think you guys all know. So, so basically, it's the same. We're still working our way through the bylaws. We are actually pretty much done, but we have, thanks to Craig and Todd, I think we are almost completely done with the ministerial agreement part of things, and then marrying those things up or making sure there are no conflicting things related to the ministerial agreement and the bylaws that apply to the minister. Let's see, this past week, we revisited a couple of things that people are clearly and very kindly sort of reviewing on their own time, and then bringing to our attention that maybe we might want to readdress some of these things. We also worked this week a little bit more on the shared ministry section per Todd's request after meeting with the shared ministry team. So we've made a few changes. I don't know if that's going to be exactly to Todd and the shared ministry team's approval, but we'll find that out. We did one other, it seems like we did three really important things. I know we talked again about what would happen if the church ever dissolved and how that would come into play, and where our assets would go. So that's pretty much what we worked on this past week. We keep continuing to plug along. We still have some work to do. We've got in our minutes from last month posted on already the upcoming meetings that we're going to provide for the congregation to go over particular articles in sections and give us some feedback. So we'll continue to plug forward on our weekly workshops. I think that's it. right now, I don't know that I need to go into too much more detail. Everything is gonna keep, it's gonna all certainly eventually finish, and we'll have a nice product, hopefully, and we'll vote on that at the congregational meeting. And we're gonna talk a little bit more about that in this meeting as we discuss that being a substantial revision. So I think that's that. So Todd, you have a minister's report.
Yeah, I think one, just to get it on the record, that after discussing it with the board during an executive session last month, that just to put it on record that I will be taking a sabbatical from January 24th through February, through all of February, and then be back on March 1st. So just we'll start to let the congregation know about that, but I thought this would be better get it on official record here, since we don't actually make decisions in board meetings, I mean in executive sessions. And then also we received a letter from the UUA today. The office did really routine sort of about, you know, what we owe to be a full share, a fair share, whatever they call it now. And it was just about 30,000. I think 29 something would be where we would be at if we were to pay that. Not that we're going to by any means. And of course, Rebecca would be happy if we didn't pay a penny, and probably a lot of other folks would at this point. But I thought it would be appropriate, really, for me to write a letter to the UUA, maybe myself and Lynn, that just explains that, you know, we really worked hard to become a full share congregation, and we had succeeded right up to the Gadfly papers. And you know, we can't anymore. And it's not because we disagree with the direction they're taking, which we do, but it's because of the way they abused their authority in our congregation caused a reduction in pledges. You know, rather than handling that in a way that was Unitarian Universalist, it was handled in a very illiberal way, and just added to the heartache and the upset and the conflict. And so I really feel, you know, they should take the financial hit for their misbehavior as much as possible. And I think that should be said, you know, just in a very direct way, not a rude or crude way, but just to directly say, you know, this is not something that we want at this point in our relationship with the UUA, but we have no choice. And we really feel that had you not violated your own ethics and interfered with our church, things would be different. I don't know if we want to discuss that tonight or not, but I you know, we have until sometime in February or March, or not February, but March or so to pay this. And I would like to do it, but I wouldn't want to do it without at least some discussion with the board. And then finally, Doris Shin is in the process of passing away, and she has a power of attorney who is executor of her estate. And he donated an entire storage bin to our church of Doris's stuff, and it's like from wall to garage to floor to ceiling, a lot of books, some antique furniture, stuff like that. He thought it could be used or given away or sold or something, and maybe the antiques are worth something, I don't know. But Julie Jose, who was a friend or is a friend of Doris's, found out about it sort of accidentally. He called her executor called her and found out she was part of the church. So she's been in touch with transitions, and she's ready to get a truck and help unload that. We do have to have it emptied in a month. I feel better about just having it cleaned out and given to people who need it, whether that's transition or some other organization. It wasn't something I was intended. When he called me to let me know what was going on with Doris, he said, she has some antique chairs and a table that I think she'd like you guys to have, to sell, to auction, to use. And I just said, "Oh, that's very nice. Thank you." And then all of a sudden it was, and by the way, that's great, but it has to be out of the storage shed, by the next few weeks. I mean, it turned into a thing where I had to go over there, and so it was turned into this big deal that I wasn't expecting. So I'd like to, wash my hands of it, but I think it's worth bringing it up to the board because, if somebody wanted to go through that and try to find some sort of financial gain from it, it is a donation to the church. So I don't want to just arbitrarily decide, let's just give it away again without knowing that's what I'd want to do and giving you the opportunity for some discussion. So those are the three things.
Well, okay, so the sabbatical we already knew about, so that we don't really need to discuss. Thank you for reminding us, and that will be in the minutes so the congregation will all see that. I would love to write a letter to the UUA with you and or sign something or support that, or I think that is a wonderful idea. Tom, what is?
Well, you need to comply with Article 9 of your public relations of your existing bylaws, which addresses, who speaks on behalf of the church and how it's done. So I would suggest that you make sure that you are in conformance with that Article 9 of your existing bylaws, which I could read to you if you're interested. It's not that long.
I'm pretty familiar with Article 9. Who speaks on behalf of the church?
Okay, neither the staff and ad hoc committee, minister, team, other member or friend of the church may represent the church, issue written statements or make media releases in the name of or containing the name of the church unless approved by the operations team in consultation with the board. So if you're going to do something, I suggest that that there be something solid that the board can look at and say they approve of. And it also apparently needs to be approved by the operations team if this is going to be a statement from the church to another organization.
I don't think this is a PR
No, it's not a
issue.
media release.
This is a response to the UUA. So,
Well, it says or make media releases. So that's, you've got two thoughts separated by the word or. All I'm advising you is to comply with your bylaws.
Okay, well, we can take a peek at that, but we can still write a letter and certainly reflect back on those bylaws, make sure we're not doing anything. But since, we can absolutely, I don't think we would send something that the board hasn't all read and approved. And Todd is the lead of the ops team. So that's.
Yeah, I think, the way we've interpreted that in the past is, who is it coming from, right? Like a team can write a statement representing the team, but not the whole church. So we could do it as, myself and the board, not reflecting a statement from the whole congregation, but as the leadership of the congregation, if you will. Or we can go through that process just as well. And of course, in consultation with the board is always a rather vague statement too.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Tom. I always like to be reminded because we don't want to not follow our bylaws. That gets us into trouble. We have learned that.
Well, there were a few who did that in the past.
Exactly. Exactly. So
Yeah,
we don't, but go ahead, Dick.
I was gonna say, I would suggest that the board, Lynn, you write it on behalf of the board. So this is assuming, we look at it and say, yeah, this is what we want to send off. But right from the vantage point of the board, Todd, you're the head of the operations team as well as being the minister. And it's the operations aspect of this that directly impacted our ability to participate. And so, I mean, I think that a statement that goes, who sent this letter to our church?
It's the UUA. They send it out routinely when it's time to start trying to get funding to remind every church, what they think they owe. And
Right.
yeah.
So, I mean, presumably it's a letter signed by somebody. And so I would suggest that the response be directed to that person, whoever it is, whose every signature is on that or whatever body was represented on that. And that it come from Lynn representing the board and our view of how their behavior ever since the election of the new board has not actually been in accord with their own bylaws, and they have never reached out to anybody on the board, not me when I was president, not Lynn, at least as far as I know, since she's president, or anyone else, nor Utah. So that it be addressed both the behavioral part and then from the operations point of view, the fiscal impact of the consequences of their how shall I say, interference in the internal affairs of our church.
Mhm.
Right.
That would be my recommendation, but that it go to whoever sent the letter to us specifically, just directly to them in response to that, and to address these to the operational part, and the fact that the UUA has not been in adhering to its own requirements in communicating with the church, not just the minister, but with the church.
Right.
And I think that this will be the very first time that that is, has been put in writing. And my guess is that, I mean, this should be from us to them, to that person, whoever it is. I don't think that we should make it public. I would guess that they would make it public.
Mm-hmm.
And so
maybe we could CC it to Susan Frederick Gray or and their executive vice president. What do you think of that?
could do that. I'm open for discussion on that one.
Other
Good.
thoughts?
Well, I'm in line with everything that Todd said he would like to say. But I'm just one of us. Maybe everyone could just kind of weigh into if they think that sounds like a good idea, just to start with.
I think it's a great idea. Lynn collaborating with Todd, I think would be, great.
Candace is breaking up for me. Is she breaking up for others?
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay.
I-
I'll try.
We heard you. We
We heard you.
frozen, but you seem
Yeah.
okay now.
Yeah, try again, Candace.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea to respond to that. And I like the idea of Todd and Lynn working together to write the letter.
Yeah, I'll second Candace's motion.
Oh golly, motions. Yeah. I agree. It would be good to write a letter and make it clear why we can't be full share. Kind of put, connect the dots for them, is what it sounds like. And Todd
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
Lynn to write that letter would be great.
I would support that. I also think another reason we might put in there is just we've really received no services from them over the past year or two. So in addition to them being a problem for us, what have they done for us? So
Yeah, never reached out. And this latest letter they sent to me about, they were going to, in addition to having included my name in their magazine, against their policy of not including my name in their magazine, they're putting together a website in which I'll be permanently named unfit for ministry. They told me that was going to be going to the president of all churches and to the leaders of churches. And to my knowledge, nobody in our congregation received it.
Oh, wow.
I don't think
Yeah.
they're sending you, Lynn,
No,
or Dick. They didn't send you any of the president's letters that they send to other congregations. So, that can't be an oversight.
Mhm.
interesting. So basically, they're asking for our money, but they're really not a service organization to us because we have chosen you as our minister. I mean, that's kind of what that says, or I don't know how else to interpret that.
Mhm.
And I have wondered, what does that mean for us? What if our minister that we have chosen is unethical and unfit, then who are we? What does that mean? Who are we to them? Are we also then by, is it guilt by association?
Mhm.
And who precisely is it that's making this determination on fitness to be a minister?
Right.
Right.
I mean, it has to be signed by somebody. It has to go out over somebody's name. Who is it that is making this determination as to who is to be a minister and who isn't to be a minister?
Well, I didn't think the letter addressed the minister at all. Am I wrong, Todd? This was just a standard boilerplate UUA letter to all congregations. I didn't hear you mention anything about a minister.
Well,
I mean,
No.
I understand the implication, but
they sent it to me in an email saying that we're going to be informing the presidents, going out to congregation leadership, which should include ministers and board presidents.
no, I'm talking about the letter from UUA reminding us of our fair share. That's the only thing an issue.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. We were talking about I was talking about the letter in which they announced they were putting together a web page.
Oh, yeah, I understand all that.
Yeah, and that was supposed to go out to the leadership of our congregation. To my knowledge, it hasn't gone to any. Nobody here has received it outside of the email I got. So this is just again an example of communications not being filtered our way. Now the request for money came to our office. It came to Rebecca.
And we did not pay our fair share last year either.
It sounds like all of the things that you've suggested, why it would be, you could conclude your statement by, we will make a $1 donation or a $1 contribution.
Well, it was 3,000, which is what we could afford. And my hope at that time was that we'd be able to pay our full share, because I think if we're gonna have a fight with the UUA, we should be able to claim that we have a right to have a full voice in it.
Mhm.
Until we decide otherwise. But when we found out just how corrupt their behavior was, obviously it seemed like they should take the financial hit more than us. So
I do want to keep in mind also, Dick, I know I know we've talked about it at, I think, I can't remember where, it must have been at a workshop, but, or maybe it was a board meeting when we were talking about the endowment team, but we were saying, you know, we want to be kicked out. We don't want to quit, right? We want,
Oh, yeah,
do you remember that?
yeah,
I
right.
want the UUA to say, we break up with you, rather than
Yeah.
us taking our ball and bat and storming off. But I am in full agreement that this does definitely need to be addressed, as does, I think, you know, the stuff about your name being published on their website or whatever. You weren't in the recent UU world.
But you know, I remembered afterwards that they put my name in last year. So because it was last year that I was disfellowshipped, so they put my name in last year, which again was anomalous because they made a rule that my name couldn't be in the UU world at all. I'm convinced that's why they got rid of their letters to the editor section. So my name, so they already announced my disfellowship in last year. So they're only printing this thing twice a year now, right?
Mm.
So what they were doing was deciding, hey, we need more people to know. So they're basically going to put our names up forever. It's not just printing it in one edition of their magazine. Now they're going to just put it up on a website where everybody who wants to look at it can see who the UUA defines as unfit for ethical service and ministry.
And wasn't there supposed to be somebody else, at least one other person? Maybe that person who was, you know, back on the East Coast, who was kicked out of the MFA?
Yeah, Kate Rohde.
Yeah, Kate Rohde, right.
And I think her disfellowship was very recent. Seems like I saw something from her on that. But there have been some others too. You know, one person, I don't know him. I've not talked to him. He emailed me one time, a young man new to ministry. He was disfellowshipped for online bullying.
Hmm.
Now that basically means he said something they disagree with online.
Yeah.
Therefore, he's a bully. Or you say something that hurts somebody's feelings, you're a bully. And anyway, I don't know the whole story on it, but he was also let go during the year.
Darrell, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that the UUA currently has $80 million in their endowment. So this is separate from the about 80 million that the congregations have or other organizations have. So they have 80 million in an endowment, and they're still asking churches to contribute a substantial amount. So that's another, you know, it's related, not completely separate, but it would be interesting for somebody to ask them, what's your intent? What's your plan to do with this $80 million? It seems like they could probably function for 20 years without getting any more donations from churches around the country with that kind of endowment. So
what are they doing with it? What are they doing with this money?
I don't know.
Well, they may well have, you know, conditions or terms for their endowment, just exactly like what, you know, what we have, that it could only be used for certain things.
But it does seem like member organizations should know that.
Well, it's probably written somewhere.
Yeah, it probably is. We might
Mm,
have to do some research there.
I wouldn't.
Even minus the 80 million, you know, what are we getting for our money? You know, especially if the congregation is paying $30,000 a year, and they're, you know, now they're basing it on your whole operations budget. They're not basing it on your income. They're basing it on what you intend to spend, and taking you know, about 7% of that. That's their goal. So it's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. Okay.
Great. Okay, so I think everybody has weighed in here that we all think it's a good idea to write this letter.
Yeah, we'll write it and then make sure we go through a process. I think Tom's got a good point, just so there's no questions asked. We'll, I'll let the operations team know what we're doing. And then you guys will be able to look at it and tweak it, improve it, approve it, whatever.
Yeah, the approving organization, unless approved by the operations team in consultation with the board of trustees or the congregation. So it's pretty explicit when when you bisect the sentence and just see what it applies to when it talks about a written statement from the church. It'll be real clear when you read it.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, and then lastly, a storage container, guys. We were just talking about this, weren't we, with accepting gifts?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Tom, do you know what do the current bylaws say? Can you bring that right up?
It's probably just doesn't address it. I can't recall that it addresses. I will look through it while
I
you're
remember us.
working. Your current thinking in your revised bylaw draft is that if it's going to be monetized, and that suggests whatever in there is valuable, and I don't know how you do that unless you get somebody in there like Owen's auctioneering and say auction it, here it is, auction it off, make any money off it, we want 50% or whatever it is. But I will look in there while you kind of go on to something else. and
Okay.
scan through it, but I don't think we're going to find a lot.
I'm looking at it now, and in the current bylaws, it said the Board of Trustees has the authority to refuse any gift. So that's under the endowment team. That's Article 11, very
Yeah.
last section 3.
Yeah.
Well, we have the authority to refuse a gift, but what do we do with a gift? I mean, this could be of some level of value, but it's hard to know. And who does go about figuring that out? Is Julie Jose?
Unless there are some very rare items in there, the value is probably negligible. There are some nice quote unquote antiques at Owen's auction, and they go for pennies on the dollar. So I would be inclined to donate the whole thing to somebody, and not worry about the rest of it.
And you mentioned transitions, correct?
Yeah.
So there's furniture. Are they able actually to use furniture or donate furniture?
Yeah, they that's pretty much what they do, is try to help, I think women in particular, get into new housing, get out of bad situations and into good situations. So
Yeah.
they're all looking. We just, I actually took sheets and blankets and pillows. I was looking for a new home for some recently, and I just happened to stop by to see if they wanted them, and they were eager for that and a bunch of other stuff I was taking to the Goodwill. So, and we do have a connection with Susan and her background. So, and I think Julie's been in touch with her about this. So I can get a hold of Julie tomorrow and see, what their thinking might be. But yeah, my ideal would be, even if it's worth some monetary value, maybe let our friends at Transition deal with the headache of figuring out what that is. And if nothing else, they could, people can benefit from this stuff. Apparently Doris was a hoarder, so I guess her house looks very much like her storage shelter or storage shed. We probably, there was no way to even see what was in there. It was just, you open the door and it's like a wall of stuff.
Yeah.
boxes of books and who knows what. So
Oh,
antiques for sure. She was born in 1902 or 03 or something. So uh, is that right?
no, that can't be. She'd be 120.
93. So that would have been, well, you can do the math anyway.
Well,
That- probably some antiques, you know.
what was the exact context? Was the executor saying she is willing this to our church? Or do we have an option? Was it an optional commentary?
Yeah, it was an optional.
Okay, so
yeah,
you could refuse it and then they would go somewhere else. Is that,
I know, but I've already accepted it.
okay? Well,
This is a nice guy.
the section that Daryl cited is under the endowment, which implies when it says the Board of Trustees has the authority to refuse any gift, it's in the endowment section. So if she didn't give it to the endowment section, then you can do basically anything you want to.
Yeah.
I mean, the church can do anything they want to, because the only authority in there to refuse a gift is with regard to something that goes to the endowment. Unless you want to just kind of start making stuff up.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think this was the executor's decision. He recognizes, you know, he's responsible for cleaning all this up, you know, as she moves on. And so, but anyway, like I say, I thought when he said we're going to give you a couple of chairs and a table or whatever, he was going to drop it off at the church, and you know, so yeah, sure, that's great. You know, I didn't want to. I didn't want to be rude in light of the generosity, and next thing I know, I'm, you know, going up there to look at them, and then it's like, you know, I want to give the whole thing to you. I want to write.
Oh,
There
pressure.
were a lot of boxes of books, you know, we could go through and put the books in our library. I mean, or the book sale table, but boy, it's just going to be a lot of work. Now, I did see an email just a minute ago from Julie saying that she and Jerry would be willing to help clear that out, and that Betty and Tom Bradabo would use their truck. So, you know, I mean, I'm perfectly happy with them doing that and then taking it to whoever wants it. I just don't want to, you know, reject the offer of something that might have some financial value without letting you know, and having some consensus that that's a wise thing to do in this case.
Well, can I make a suggestion? Can we just turn that over? If we have congregants who are willing to look at that and take it to somebody who might need it, or make a decision, can't we as a board say, and as a CEO say, great, Julie, thank you. Do what you will with this. And she can make those decisions. She and Jerry and the Bradabos can figure this out. If they're willing to take their own time and their own resources and do that, I think that's just lovely. And if they say, hey, this is a beautiful antique that maybe we could sell, maybe they can figure that out, or maybe not, and let them make that decision. Can we
Well,
just turn it over to them?
Well, alternatively, if this person had come to you, Todd, and said she wants to give us $4,000, and it was not specified for the endowment fund, what would the church do with $4,000 walked in the door under our current situation? How would that come down?
Current situation, if it's a bequest or an undesignated gift, it would go to the endowment.
Okay, so in that case, it even though it's a collection of unknown worth stuff, it is in the endowment. It sounds like what you're saying. So what Daryl is saying is the board has the authority to refuse, and if you don't refuse, then any proceeds would end up in the endowment if there's any value, if you can monetize it. Am I missing something?
No, but I don't think you're missing anything. But what I'm saying is we have congregants who are willing to do the work.
Yeah, good.
And so can't we just let Julie and Jerry make those decisions? We don't know. Who's going to know what it's worth without somebody doing the work behind that? And maybe they make a mistake and they give away a bazillion-dollar table or something.
Well-
And
It sounds like you're thinking about appointing a special committee for a special task, a special group for a special task. And then if they're going to report back to you, and then you got something to do. Then you got something of value or not of value. Sounds like that's what you're doing, which is okay.
I would suggest following Lynn's suggestion of turning this over to Julie and Jerry and the Radabos, and having them give it to whomever they determine is needy, whatever agency or whatever, and also have them, send out an email to Building and Grounds to get some help to move this stuff, because it sounds like there's a lot of it. We've accepted it already. I think the best thing to do is to try to find a home for it for people that can use it.
so Todd, will you just respond to Julie's email and
Yeah, I sure will.
let her know that? And yeah, I don't know how you go about getting that help. If there's somebody else who might be willing to help or able to help, that'd be wonderful. Probably, I'm sure they'd love it.
I mean, it's nice that they stepped up to the plate, and if if there's something of value, they will probably let us know. But I kind of agree, and since it's not an actual monetary gift, I think that gives us at least some play around the endowment stuff to kind of say, this wasn't a financial gift. So I'm happy if transitions, if nothing back, and we did. So.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's incumbent upon, members of our congregation to essentially take care of somebody else's mess, which is kind of what it sounded like. There's a great big bunch of stuff that you can't even see what it is. Well, that's very expensive for people to get rid of. And I think it's sort of presumptuous to expect that we would be willing to do that much work without having any idea of that it's of any value.
Greg?
Say, if you talk to Julie, tell her that I've got a pickup truck and I'd be willing to help.
Oh, great. Thank you. I will. I'll get with her once we're done with our meeting, or at least I'll respond to her email.
Great.
Yeah, I think that transition is one place. Another, there are various places like ARC, the Association of, I've forgotten. But anyway, they take donations.
And if they're interested, they should be asked to come and do the clearing out or help.
Yeah, they actually will pick up.
I know that Julie is very interested in this because she's kind of, called me immediately when she found out about it, and it looks like she's already made arrangements to start getting it out. So that's a relief, really, if there's somebody who wants to take the lead on it. And apparently she knew Doris well and even helped her move some stuff into that place. So
Okay. So Julie does seem like the best positioned person to be taking this on. So
Yes.
Please pass on to her too, Todd, that I'm going to speak on behalf of this entire board right now, that we all said thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
By the way, let me just quickly say, I just found out about those last two items today. So I'm sorry if we ended up taking far more time from your meeting on those than you were planning, Lynn.
No, that's just fine. I think those great topics, interesting topics and things to discuss. So good. Okay, Candace, operations team report.
All right. The team continues to review the strategic plan and recently reviewed the reserve and replacement fund and security sections. The R&R fund is currently at $47,044.71. It is a budgeted line item every year with the hope that $15,000 will be put into it every year. They went over the security section and deemed that every item in that section has been accomplished. And currently the emphasis is on maintenance of the security systems. 2 new security cameras have been purchased and will provide views of the parking lot and the area outside the kitchen. In addition to 24/7 coverage, they will also be closely monitored on Sunday mornings by volunteers. A search for a new IT company is being conducted as the current company is expensive and has shown some reluctance to guarantee their work. Creating a new team to operate the Grounds for Change coffee cart was discussed with the idea that the proceeds could be used as a church fundraiser. The team is currently looking for new volunteers for the generosity team. If board members have any suggestions for who might staff this team, they request those names be referred to them. And lastly, the team has created a policy to not allow homeless people to reside on our property due to the number of issues that have arisen from allowing this in the past, including the sense that neither our property nor our staff were safe or felt safe. Our insurance policy does not cover it and our property is not zoned for it. And we don't have the facilities or security required to provide this kind of assistance.
Comments, questions?
Can I ask a question about the IT item? Could you expand on what those services are? And the number 3, search for new IT companies being conducted?
Yeah, I think the existing company is Vega something. And they came out and did some work, I guess, with the computers and the streaming service, maybe. I don't know. Todd, you obviously know more than this, more than I do, because I wasn't at the meeting. So I'm just reading from their minutes.
Yeah, it's primarily they maintain our computers.
Mhm.
And there's often problems with our computers, both laptops and the desktops.
Okay.
There's a couple of computers that have had problems for some time, and they've come in and worked on them for hours, and then it ends up having the exact same problem. And this has happened, 3 times in a row with one computer, and they're charging us to travel to our, place and travel back, and in addition to the fees that they're charging, and then they're not guaranteeing their work. So that's why Rebecca's looking for another option.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question about the homeless issue? That I know was an issue in the past. I didn't realize it was an issue currently. So is this something new?
Well, we had a request from some people to move back onto our property. So, yeah, so that's kind of,
Okay.
Yeah, and not only that, but you're probably aware we've been making changes to our parking lot, where once we get our gate in, we will be closing off the larger parking lot so that people cannot spend the night there. But they routinely do spend the night there. I mean, there's probably somebody there now or more than one. And unfortunately, they trash it. They literally leave whole bag or cans worths of trash just littering our parking lot, sometimes daily, which I don't understand. And then of course we had quite an expensive repair on our light post, where somebody didn't want to sleep with the lights on, I guess, and so they snipped the wires. So that's a big problem. And then we have had a couple of people that sort of got got back on their feet by staying on our property, but there was also a lot of issues with that we prefer not to live with. And one of those was not having staff to manage what was going on with some of those folks. And then, as Candace said, there's even reason some of our staff are beginning to feel unsafe, or at least uncomfortable. So we've just decided it's going to be best at this point to go ahead and have a policy that says, we just can't allow it. We don't have the ability to do so in a way that's good for us.
And will this new gate, I know that there has recently been at least one individual who has slept in the parking lot and also attended church. Will this gate prevent that?
No, people can still, because we have by law, we have to keep the front entrance, the one closest to the church, we have to keep that open because there's public access. Tom knows more about what that is than I do, but all the way through to the Mukagawa property, and we have to leave that open. And so people will always be able to come into that section, and they could also go around the building park, near where the shed is. People tend not to want to do that because we have cameras up, and it's just they can't get away with doing as much there as they can out in that big parking lot where it's hard to see what's going on. We don't have cameras out there, so it's possible that people would still park in there, a few, but we would ask them not to if it feels safe to do so.
Okay. Any comments on generosity team individuals, ideas for people who might be good candidates? It was Sunny Cook and Linda Green last year. Is that correct?
I believe so. Mhm.
Mhm.
And I think Linda is still on it. I think that's what they mentioned.
Good. Okay, well, keep your eyes and ears open. That's not an easy job, I don't think. Okay, next, we need to have a discussion about our bylaws revision being a substantial revision, and a discussion on that. Darrell, do you want to lead us off on that? Oh, you're muted.
Can you share the Word document that I attached, or allow me to share it, one of the two?
Yeah. Let me, I'm not sure I pulled it right up, so. You don't have access to sharing?
I don't know.
Oh, let me see.
Oh, I do, maybe. No,
Nope.
host disable participate
Okay.
screen sharing. So I think you need to do something.
I fixed it. See if you can now.
I don't know if I can find it. Are you seeing my screen?
Not yet.
I have forgotten how to do this, Lynn.
I have it.
Do you?
I'll do it. Yep.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay. I didn't think I had it, but I do. Is this what you wanted, the motion?
That's it. Yes. So just for background, for the board, we're making substantial revisions, and Tom Mosier's helped us with this. determining that these are substantial revisions of the work that we've been doing. And since there are substantial revisions, there's a clause in our bylaws in Article 12, Section 2 of the current bylaws that allow us to declare the changes substantial revisions, and that allows us to ask the congregation to vote up or down on all of the changes rather than to take them item by item and propose amendments or changes or deletions or additions. So I'm proposing a motion 1, and this is rewritten some from what Tom sent earlier, that we do this. I can read it if you want me to. And I guess I'll do that. I'll make a motion. So in accordance with Article 12, Section 2, the UUCS bylaws, I move that the proposed revised bylaws be declared a substantial revision, and further that when the board's final version is presented to the congregation for consideration at an official congregational meeting, the congregation will be asked to adopt the revised bylaws with an up or down vote without allowing for changes to the proposed revised bylaws.
So is there a second to that?
And I can send that to Dorothy, so you don't have to write all that down.
I second the motion.
Is there any discussion? It feels like we've been discussing this for months.
Yeah, the only discussion that I would offer is that while what Darrell says is correct, it sort of that motion will be put to the congregational meeting at the very beginning for an up or down vote, if I understand correctly. And they may concur because it qualifies, but they may, Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, they might decide nonetheless that they want to turn down that motion, in which case then it goes up item by item. Is that correct?
Yeah, and that's the only comment I was going to make was just to make sure that you understood that you just can't go into that congregational meeting and say we're going to have an up or down vote.
Right.
You have to have a motion approved before you get to the actual revised bylaws that the congregation agrees to an up or down vote. So, one, you need to know that, and I guess that's the.
Can I just ask
Yeah.
my only clarifying question, if the congregation says no to that, it just means no to that. It doesn't mean yes to a line by line thing. That would be another vote, wouldn't it? Another motion that would need to be made?
Well, if they're a congregation by a 50% majority, and I'll add the caveat that I still need to clarify that with a higher level parliamentarian, that you can do that because it may be overly restricting something. But the best information I have so far is that a 50% vote would be proposed, that we have an up or down vote on the document. And if that fails, then you simply can't proceed with your up or down vote. You'd have to then, we're going to have a contingency plan. And the contingency plan would be something to the effect that you could propose to adopt the revised, the revised bylaws as presented, but then it would be subject to amendments with people wanted, like for instance, an amendment to a change of the language in the endowment section, or to change anything else. It would be subject to that all along, item by item by item, depending on whatever the whim was of the people and their interests.
Right.
Darrell?
Tom, that's not how I'm reading that this this section of the bylaws, the amendments, we're looking at section 4. I don't read it that way. I read it that the board can vote to present these bylaws for an up or down vote. The congregation then, by 2/3 majority, votes on that. There's nothing about a motion to do it this way.
Okay, what section 4 are you referring to?
Well,
The
it's
section only?
the amendments. It's section 4 of the amendments. So section 4 of the old Article 12.
I'm looking at Article 12. It only has 3 sections.
Well, Article 12 is, it's the new Article 16. It's under amendments.
Well, I'm looking at the last approved articles of bylaws, and it only has 3 sections. And it's section 2 that addresses this. And it says these bylaws may be amended by a 2/3 majority vote and the members present, provided the proposed amendment or change shall be included in writing in the call of the meeting. And then a separate sentence, in the event
Okay,
these bylaws are subject to a substantial revision, it shall not be necessary to prepare a deletion addition format as long as a proposed restated version is presented to the congregation verbally or in writing with an adequate explanation.
So we're looking at the same thing. It's a new section 4 now. So I read that as the board can decide that these are substantial revision, therefore they're presented to the congregation for an up or down vote as revised. 2/3 of it takes 2/3 the majority to pass. I don't see anything in here about presenting it to the congregation to see if they want to have an up or down vote. Do you? Does anybody else?
Where I picked this up was from talking with Gail Knapp, as you know, a nationally known parliamentarian. And I went through this in writing with her back and forth several times. And she said you can't do an up or down vote unless the congregation approves that they want to have an up or down vote.
And our goal is to ensure that the congregation wants to have an up or down vote. And that's why we are going to be so careful about having these, every opportunity anybody wants to give us their feedback, and we'll continue our workshops until, and so that we are advertising, I guess, if you will, that we've done everything we can to make sure that people who are interested have the opportunity to speak and their voice is heard and to give us that feedback. So my biggest worry is if the congregation says no, that then means we would have to go item by item or whatever. But I'm not hearing that either. To me, it sounds like if the congregation says no, then we're just done. And it picks up again another time. I mean, the congregation has the right to say no, right?
No, it wouldn't be that. If the congregation says we do not want to have an up or down vote, you can still proceed then to propose these bylaws, which would have to pass by a 2/3 majority, but you'll have to go through an amendment process, which could be ad infinitum with having to, schedule, if you've scheduled a 2-hour meeting or approximately a 2-hour meeting and you're exceeding it, then you simply have to adjourn the meeting to another meeting and continue going through the bylaws until everything is amended. Maybe it's going to take 3 amendments, no amendments, or maybe it's going to take 55 amendments.
But our goal is to have
Consideration of the amendments.
So I still don't see in our bylaws as they're currently written that we need to ask a congregation to approve an up or down vote. It seems like we present the revised bylaws. If 2/3 of the people approve, then they're passed. If they don't, then they aren't passed. And regardless of what Gail Knapp says, I mean, that's what it doesn't have that clause in our bylaws, does it?
No, it does not, except that, yeah, you can put it up for a 2/3 vote with the open-ended assumption
Mhm.
that, for instance, somebody who wants to change the endowment section to say the endowment fund can be rated for any reason at all, then that's an amendment that'll have to be, could be brought forward. But if you have a 50% of the congregation assembled vote, they're going to have an up or down vote, then there are no amendments if they approve the amendment to have, if they approve the motion to have the up or down vote and a 2/3 majority approves it, you're done.
Well, it's going to be, I still don't see anything in our bylaws that says we have to do that intermediate step. And I'm not a parliamentarian, but I think with all the work we've done, I think the congregation deserves to have an opportunity to vote up or down on the revisions. If we present to the congregation, we need your okay to have an up or down vote, I can almost guarantee that's not going to pass because people are going to want to change things. If it's take it or leave it, you may have problems with this or that, but if you are okay with enough of it, you're going to vote for it. I think it's a recipe for disaster to ask the congregation to approve an up or down vote. That's my
And I agree, Darrell, and exactly why we put together the plan, the campaign plan to review and socialize all the changes with the bylaws in all of those meetings that we put in that schedule, so that we won't come to that point. There will be no surprises when we get to the congregational meeting. That it's an up or down, or what we did to it, to the bylaws and what they contain.
All right, that was part of the strategy that I thought you all mulled over in the beginning. If you have enough of the workshops and you have enough amendments and not amendments, but adjustments to the document you're going to actually present to them, then a 50% vote is only half of the body that says, okay, we're going to have an up or down vote. If you don't have that kind of a vote at the beginning, then you are inviting continued debate that takes a 2/3 majority in order to approve that. So that you haven't got anything to lose really if you do the 50% vote in the beginning, because if it passes, then you guaranteed you can't have anything except an up or down vote. If it doesn't pass, you're right back to where you were without ever having proposed the motion, and that is an open-ended multiple possibility of amendments.
And in our advertising of the workshops, I think it's really important to say just repeatedly over and over again, the board has spent a tremendous amount of time looking at every single one of these bylaws in a very dedicated and sustained way. And we intend to ask the congregation to vote for this in an up or down way so that they know that we're intending to ask them to approve it at the congregational meeting.
Yeah, agreed, Catherine.
Mhm. And
Except
I
a small point. What I would, and we can get to it when we actually put this plan together, not to emphasize how much time we spent, but the results, what we've changed, what's valuable in those bylaws, how they're improved. I'm not really typically sold by how much time you spent,
Right.
you know.
We've just all been sitting around having tea, making jokes, you know.
Well, we definitely did spend a lot of time, Catherine, and I know it has been valuable, but I'm just saying we have, when we go to pitch it and to the congregation, what we've done, that's the tact I would like to
Okay.
Yes,
That's
I
all.
Here's where I'm supposed to be your advisor. Here's where I'm at. I will go back again and present this scenario now that we have more detail to Gail Knapp. If she still advises me that you can't do this based on your bylaws without first going through the motion, which was her first response back to me, then you will be on your own and I will leave the room, except to vote, except to come back in to vote. Because if you're going to do something that's contrary to what the advice is of a nationally known parliamentarian, then I don't want to have anything to do with it.
Okay,
Okay?
Right.
heard and understood.
All right. I will go back to her with even by phone if we need to have a, dialogue. But this
Okay.
is where she came from when I first talked about an up or down vote.
But I really do like the way Catherine just stated that, in that our intention is to ask for that. Our intention is to ask you to vote up or down on this. And what I think that will do is make sure that people who are interested truly are making the time to come to one of the to the workshops that
Yeah,
were.
You're absolutely right. In fact, I've told you that all along, and I put that's absolutely, I said a couple of times, and I may even put it in writing somewhere, that at the beginning of every workshop, you tell them what you did and what you intend to do,
Correct.
so that nobody is surprised when it comes to this meeting. And hopefully that will make the 50% vote. If that's what it's going to have to be, that'll make it a no-brainer. And then you'll have your up and down vote. But you can't, I'm not even ever suggesting, surprising him at the congregational meeting, that we're going to have an up or down vote.
Okay, Todd.
This is a question for Tom. I think it might be helpful for you to explain why, if it's not written in our bylaws, it's necessary for us to follow the recommendations of a nationally recognized parliamentarian, as you say. Is there a greater requirement from the state? Why is it that we are bound to that recommendation? And I'm not arguing with you here. I just think that's a piece of the puzzle that maybe some of us aren't understanding.
Well, I think part of the puzzle is that if you read what we've got here in section 2 of the existing Article 12, there isn't anything that says anything about an up or down vote. So we're either making that up, or you've got to have a vote to say the body says we will do an up or down vote.
Yeah, I think it's during the workshops, we'll be telling people that we'll do an up and down vote, and that having the first order of business be to that end, to authorize an up or down vote, I think is very consistent with what we're doing. I don't see why we shouldn't do that.
Yeah,
So
I think that makes sense to do up or down vote.
But so this would be in terms of a normal motion, right? Where we move that we accept these changes as have been discussed in various meetings in an up or down vote, or however you propose the motion. And then you have to call for discussion, correct? And so the discussion will be whether or not the congregation wants to do that. And if they don't, they will let it be known. Somebody may call the question. It may get to that point, and then the congregation still has to determine whether they want to do it.
Right, right. But then under this plan, it's a 50% approval. If 50% approve for an up or down vote, then that hurdle is passed. And then when we bring up the motion of the actual changes, then the discussion is about the changes, people talk about it, and then we have the up or down vote, and hopefully we get the 2/3. But I mean, we need to convince a lot of people to vote for us, but I don't see why having the 50%, the motion to just have the up or down vote really harms our cause any in the meeting.
Yeah, I mean, one from a tactical point of view, I think one of the things we want to do when we meet with people is basically recruit adherence. That is, look at the great job that we've done, all of this work that we've put in. Can we count on you to, show up at the meeting? And because, we need to have some additional voices.
Well, haven't you planned, as you've spoken about this, my understanding all along has been that you're going to have these workshops and you're going to have points raised that were going to cause you to go back and consider whether or not to make a revision before you present a final document.
Yes.
That's
So
true.
hopefully in the workshops, the need for amendments or people's desires for amendment will be at least minimized, although you're not going to ever be able to satisfy certain aspects or elements of our congregation with regard to some points, and you know what I'm talking about, or examples of what I'm talking about. So I don't know, but at any rate, if I will go back and I have my correspondence with Gail Knapp, and I will go back to her for further clarification. But from her standpoint, that when we first talked about this issue, it was, if your bylaws don't provide for an up or down vote, then you can't have that unless there's a motion of the body to agree to have an up or down vote. The only thing our bylaws say is it requires a 2/3 majority vote.
Mhm.
So I'll go back and clarify that, but I'll be surprised if I come away with any different answer.
Yeah.
But Tom, doesn't this phrase, it shall not be necessary to prepare a deletion addition format version as long as the proposed restated version is presented to the congregation verbally in writing with adequate explanation. So doesn't that, isn't that the same as the up or down?
I don't think so, because if we propose that, if we add the current version that you've got, which is additions and deletions, that would be one thing, but you're going to present a clean document with an explanation about why it is in the format that it is, which will not have, all this does is say is if 5 trustees agree to it, you won't have to present an addition and deletion version. It still doesn't say that you could have an up or down vote.
But here's my question, and again, I don't know here, but why, if our bylaws don't accommodate something, can it not be done? It's not forbidding it. It's not in there that it's forbidden to do. There's a lot of things we do that we're not, that are not mentioned in the bylaws that are also not forbidden in the bylaws. Don't the bylaws restrict us rather than confine us to things that it does not discuss?
Well, then when your bylaws don't cover something, then you go back to Robert's Rules of Order. And that, that's why I consulted Councilor Gail Knapp in the beginning.
Because
So,
our
I just
bylaws
go back
do
to her
require
again.
us. Our bylaws do require us to follow Robert's Rules of Order, correct?
Right.
Okay, that's the piece I was missing, Tom. Thank you.
Okay,
I just think my last comment is, I think having this 2-step process is going to make it much harder. And maybe we need to do it. I wasn't anticipating this. It's going to make it much harder. It's going to be a lot easier for people to vote against the motion to have an up or down vote than it is to vote up or down on the revised bylaws. That's my sense. I could be wrong, but
Well, we also could just make really clear at the workshops that it's our intention to ask you to vote for this in an upper, and be willing to do this in an up or down vote, in part because we know how time consuming it is to go over every element one by one. So we're doing the workshops because we're asking that if you have objections to something, you come to the workshop and discuss it and make that known for the board to discuss before we present the final thing that we're asking for you to vote for.
yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Great.
and in addition to that, that there is the flexibility that the board hearing something in the workshop may go back and say, oh yeah, that's a better idea that came out of the workshop, we're going to amend it. And then when we get to the General Assembly, then, the congregational meeting, we can say, we've heard from the congregants that are interested in this, and we've made we've made adjustments to address the concerns that they have.
Yeah, if I again could just suggest, I mean, I think this all sounds great. But I don't see why during, especially if you're doing this in advance, and there's nothing to prevent you from repeating that in a question or discussion period while you're doing this. But if the motion were just to say, the board moves that we approve the bylaws as amended or as suggested, however you put period. Is there any discussion? The discussion is about, do you approve them as amended? Right? The discussion is not about amending the bylaws. You have to first approve whether or not you're going to vote on that motion to accept them as amended. So that's effectively an up or down vote, right?
Mhm.
No, because they're not amended. Only the congregation can amend them. And this motion that Darrell has put forward.
I'm sorry, Tom, I interrupted.
Well, the motion Darrell has put forward is to say that this will not be discussed as amendments. It'll be discussed because it'll be discussed as a substantial revision. So if I'm trying to maybe putting words in your mouth, but it sounds like you're saying that a motion without a 50% vote beforehand, a motion for the floor from the board would be to move that the revised edition presented by the board as exhibit B or A or whatever you want to call it, be adopted without any revisions. Is that what you're trying to get at?
I wouldn't phrase it that way. I would say something to the effect that we're making the motion that the bylaws be amended as presented, or something to that effect, period. So that effectively, if there's any discussion about that, if there's concerns, well, now wait a minute, I have issues with certain areas, I'd like to talk about those. Then there's an opportunity to come back and say, we've been working on this for weeks. We would prefer that we don't get into the minutia because it's going to take us forever and we're probably not going to be able to do this. And then the congregation gets to have that discussion and vote whether or not they want to accept the motion as presented.
No,
Just approve
no,
them.
it just doesn't work that way. If I'm on the floor and I want to amend Article 3, Section 4, once the main motion is on the floor, and then I have the right, and nobody can stop me from saying I move to amend Article 4, Section 2 to say blah 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 blah. Then that has to be voted on, up or down vote, and if it's approved, then the main document that you've got is now a revised document. So anybody can make a motion, can make amended motions. The whole idea of an up or down, getting approval to do an up or down vote is that there's no discussion, there's no amendments. It's this or the highway.
Because we have already had those discussions.
Well, that would
In the
be your,
workshops.
that would be your,
That's our job.
that would be your justification when you have the 50% motion in the beginning.
Correct. So if we are clear about that and we do our due diligence and we phrase things the way Catherine nicely did a bit ago, I think we're going to be fine. And I think we'll find out if we're not. And I think it's, I think that's what we're going to have to do ultimately, is to find out if the congregation, after all of these workshops, is willing to do that. We just need to sell that idea. And I think we can, for the people who are interested. And hopefully that will be enough people to be very open to that idea when it does come time for that final thing.
Okay,
But-
so are you saying that you in your scenario, would you have the vote in the beginning to have a 2/3,
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
an up or down vote, that you'd have a pre-motion, a preliminary motion in the beginning to have either an up or down vote? Are you saying that's in your scenario or not?
That is in my scenario. That is in the wording, in my understanding of this motion, that's on the floor right now, is it is in there.
No. It isn't in there, is it, Daryl?
No,
Final version is presented to the congregation for consideration at an official congregational meeting. The congregation will be asked to adopt the revised bylaws with an up or down vote without allowing for changes to the proposed revised bylaws. Will be asked to adopt the revised bylaws. So they're going to be asked to
so,
adopt with an up or down vote.
Well, that would be the first motion.
Yeah,
so Tom, after your most recent comment, I'm coming around to your way of thinking on this, that a preliminary motion for an up or down vote, and then once that clears, then there are no changes to the bylaws as proposed, and
Yeah,
that
no,
requires a
correct.
2/3 vote. So
Yeah.
I apologize for being pig-headed about this.
Oh.
I really do believe people will just say, oh yeah, I vote in favor of that. Yeah,
We
I-
can hope.
Yeah,
well, I
and
think at least 50% will.
Okay. Oh, Dick?
one other thing is that if that first vote, in fact, passes the 50% vote to have an up or down vote, then that informs the entire rest of the discussion, because there won't be amendments to this, but there may be questions or objections, and we can say, those were brought up during the workshops. These are the ways that we responded to it. Either we went back and we had made some adjustments, or we didn't, and we had reasons for doing that. We can explain the positions on each of the areas of concern that are brought up by the congregation before we take the 2/3 vote either to adopt this whole package, the whole enchilada, or not.
Great. Okay, so, oh,
It says there, as long as the proposed restated version is presented verbally or in writing with adequate explanation. So you'll have a written document that hopefully will go out to the entire church membership. And you'll have the explanation that'll go with it. And then you met the criteria to handle a revised substantial revision rather than an item by item amendment.
okay. Tom? Todd?
I think, chances are, as long as you do what it is you're planning on doing by educating the congregation, having discussions in advance, you're probably going to get the outcome that you want. Obviously, in a congregational meeting, it is going to be possible at some point for people to raise concerns if they have them, right? And so we can't get away from that. We're trying to mitigate what could be a very long meeting or a pointless meeting, because we'd have to stop it before it's over. Toward that end, I'm going to just say something that has bothered me about the culture of our meetings, our annual meetings for a long time, ever since I've been here. And I've not said anything about it because it's been part of the culture, and the parliamentarian who did it, was big on it. But the practice of squelching the call to question at the very beginning of those meetings, where we sort of ask people not to use the call to question. I believe the call to question is part of the democratic process. If people are fatigued with the conversation and they all want to vote and they know how they're going to vote, they should be able to call the question. That's one of the tools of this procedure. Last year, we ended up getting around it by coming up with a plan to give people the opportunity to vote to postpone it indefinitely, right? But it's still basically the same thing, where somebody's saying, I'm tired of the conversation. I want to try to put an end to this. So I would just say, particularly under these circumstances, where you have a subject that could really go on and on and on and on, and actually end up getting us nowhere in the end, to not squelch that that democratic tool that we have in this meeting.
Great
Food-
point.
Food for thought.
Well, on that note, can I call a question right now?
Yes.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. And so are we all in favor of calling this, declaring this a substantial revision?
Yes.
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 Yeah. Can the wording of that be changed, Darrell? Is there anything that you think might be helpful in that regard? I mean, I definitely think we want to call this a substantial revision, that part for sure.
Well, then we have to have a whole different thing, don't we? Don't we have to go back then if we're going to change the wording of this motion? I mean, I think this motion works just fine. Do you want me to share the screen again?
I guess if we give the explanation,
Yes, please share the screen.
Okay.
I think you're okay there. You haven't mentioned that there will be a preliminary vote, but that's kind of a footnote, because you do say there at the end, the congregation will be asked to adopt the revised bylaws with an up or down vote.
Yeah.
Now, the way that happens is probably, or with the initial vote to decide to do that. You'll be asking the congregation by way of a motion.
I think it's included there just fine.
Yeah, I don't mind the language the way it is. The main point is substantial revision. That's what we're trying to get approved tonight,
Yes.
I think.
Okay, so I think that was a unanimous vote. I didn't see Candace's vote.
You want us to raise hands, Lynn?
Sure, why don't you raise your hands? Oh, I better stop sharing so everybody can see. Okay. Okay, and Dick, Dick, are you? Okay, all right, good. Unanimous. Okay, Darrell, is there another motion that you wanted to bring forward tonight? Oh, you're muted.
Can you share the screen again,
Sure.
please?
Okay.
And I'm not sure that this needs to be a motion approved by us or not. It was suggested by Tom that it be included as a motion or as a separate motion.
it's so if I had any concerns, it would be with time. Because we, at the last congregational meeting, we did the pro forma changes to the Articles of Incorporation, which basically were just making sure that it was correct, things were spelled right, and addresses were accurate and so on. And that took, I don't know how long. So if we try to do this in the same meeting that we do with the substantial revision of the bylaws, I could get concerned that we might get tripped up and, this thing runs on. Maybe there's something we want to take up at a previous meeting and get out of the way.
Well, let me say this, that the only thing that is different from Darrell's motion than my motion that I proposed is that after the word considered, I had at the same workshops and congregational meetings. And what's left out from what I wrote was the workshops, with the thinking being that when you discussed the bylaw portions that related to those same sections in the articles of incorporation, you'd just be further educating the congregation. So when it came to the congregational meeting, that it would kind of be a no-brainer, because they would have already have seen what you're proposing and how it relates to the bylaws.
I think that was our plan. I didn't know that we needed to include that in the motion.
It is in our plan. It's in our calendar plan.
Right.
Well, the workshops should include both this minor adjustment to the articles of incorporation, because you don't want to pass the bylaws and not have done the articles of incorporation, because they'd be inconsistent unless you're going to have another congregational meeting before the congregational meeting you're talking about. So I think your plan that you've outlined is a good plan. I was just putting that extra wording in the motion. But if you leave it out, it isn't a killer. You know, it isn't going to stop things, because you still intend to discuss things and discuss them both in your workshops for what you all had discussed up to this point.
Yeah.
So Tom, I have a question about the process for the articles of incorporation. I think we've made 2 or 3 changes. So would those all have to be voted on separately?
Yes.
It would.
Yeah.
And
I
it
mean, it
seems,
gets complicated if you're not supposed to wrap 2 different major thoughts into the same motion. And dealing with bylaws and dealing with articles of incorporation are really, they really are 2 different items. That's-
right, but I mean, there's 2 or 3 changes in the articles of incorporation. Let's say there are 3, would we have to have 3 votes then? Or
Well,
could
you
we
could-
present the articles as revised?
You could just present the articles as, as exhibit A or B with everything included there. And then if somebody wants to pick it apart, they do an amendment, they would try to do an amendment to what you proposed. If they're going to buy into the whole concept that you're going to be using in the bylaws and the articles, I don't think they're going to, what you've done is dropped out the affiliation with UUA, and then you made some kind of word changes with regard to exempt organizations and what would happen upon the dissolution.
Could we also do an up or a vote to determine if we wanted to do an up or down vote on all of the changes?
Yes, yeah, that could be done. We'd be, writing the motions that would be used in that meeting. So you'd have some motions that would be the same thing. In fact, it could even be wrapped into that same 50% vote.
But we don't have the basis to do that, because we're not doing a large rewrite of the articles of incorporation, which is.
That's true.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but
So just a matter of timing, it seems like when we do this, we should vote on the articles first, right? Because if the articles don't pass, then we can't really make changes to the bylaws.
Correct.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, one thought that I had, so with regard to the substantial revision of the articles of incorporation, we could still, there's nothing that says that we have to have a substantial revision of the articles of incorporation to have an up or down vote. We could take the same proposal. Actually, the effect of voting a substantial revision is we don't have to prepare a form of the document that has all of the old versions and the crossouts and the new versions in different colors and so on. We just produce a clean copy. That's the material effect of voting substantial revision in the past article. Now, for this one, I mean, one thought is we might want to have like 2 of these meetings 1 week, and then the second week, the first week we do it for the articles of incorporation small. We show them what the process actually looks like. We walk them through it. We get the articles of incorporation go. Then next week do the bylaws. That's just a thought.
I just think it's tricky to get a quorum 2 weeks in a row like that and enough people to come and participate and stay and show up and
So Lynn, I would like to make this motion
okay.
and then see what people want to do with it, okay? So I move that proposed amendments to the UUCS Articles of Incorporation be considered at the same congregational meeting as the proposed revised bylaws due to the overlap of certain provisions that necessitate consistent language regarding overlapping matters.
I second the motion.
Discussion?
If we do that, then I would suggest that we, we run through the bylaws as a little mini version, or sorry, we run through the Articles of Incorporation as a little sort of little mini version and illustration of what it is they can expect when we get to the bylaws. Yeah, wait a little bit later in the meeting.
Okay. All right, I'm going to stop sharing. Are you guys ready to vote?
Yep.
Okay, all in favor of that motion? Okay, great. Great, thanks, Craig. Okay, thank you, Darrell. And Dorothy, we'll send the document to you. You probably got it. Okay, we'll send it to you. Okay, we have about 7 minutes and a couple more things to do. Honestly, the budget process discussion doesn't necessarily have to be all that long. And we can just, I'll share my screen with, I sent this document to you all. You all made me work on my math skills a little bit for that and some rephrasing of some of the priorities that we had written. Just because you came up with some different, not different priorities, but different ways of stating them. And so I had to combine some of the things that were important to people. And I also had I did take the liberty, one of you said, this should just be an ongoing always thing. So I took the liberty of saying that meant it was a number one priority for that person. So this is how it came out with math assigned to it with points when I put it all together, which was kind of interesting and fun to do, quite frankly, because when I did it just by sort of a glance at what I thought was the way it was gonna come out, it was a little different than this. So math really does work. So, so any questions about that? I sent this to Rebecca, so she's aware. And that's the way it shook out from the things that we discussed in our last meeting. I also wanted to tell you that I did just quickly glance at this email from Rebecca right before this meeting started. And it's just regarding the board's request for funding, which has historically been $25. And we never bought that bottle of wine we said we were going to buy last year with our $25. So maybe, I don't know if we could get $50. We can't probably carry over from last year, but at any rate, is there anything I can send her an email back or we can discuss that right now? I mean, it'd be a nice quick discussion. Is there anything somebody else wants to add to the board's line item for $25? We can donate our $25 back to, I don't know what. Repair and replacement fund seems like a big priority for us.
Yeah.
Okay, I will send her an email and say that's what we want, $25 again. Okay, Catherine, you have 4 minutes.
Okay, I'll maybe talk about this another time, but all I really wanted to say is that I think that we should have something in our regular weekly email that talks about what the teams are, what they do, who can be contacted, and maybe even something at the beginning before all the teams are listed saying, one of the best ways to get to know other people within our church is to work on projects with them. And these are the kinds of things that we're working on. And it may be the easiest way to feel a part of the church. I definitely know that I joined the church because I felt that there was a job for me to do. There was something that I felt I could contribute in terms of usefulness. And I think lots of people feel that way, that when they engage with other people, and you're working on something, that's how you discover things about each other's personalities. And I think we should make that very easy for people to find their way into, even if it's only their first or second time of coming to a service. And that's all I really have to say.
And so are you proposing that perhaps Candace, as our board representative, takes this to the ops team to make a request or a recommendation, or how
Yes, that sounds good to ask each team to make a very brief synopsis of the kinds of things that they work on and who people can contact that perhaps new to the church or old members of the church if they're interested in being part of that team, and that people are always welcomed and encouraged to be part of what we're doing.
thoughts, comments?
Catherine, would you, so would it just be an aid that the team heads for all the teams would be listed?
Yes, yeah, as whoever is their contact person, and just along with just a brief synopsis, maybe 2 or 3 sentences describing the kinds of things that that team works on.
And you want that somehow sent out relatively regularly?
Yeah,
Or
with
posted somewhere?
our,
Or
our on our webpage, or something that, just something maybe on our webpage, or and maybe something in the bulletin board coming into the church where it says, hey, a great way to get to know some of the people in the church is this, and you can go to our webpage, or here is a brief synopsis here on the bulletin board, something like that. Easy. I think it's easy. I'll even help people write it. So I'll make an introduction and help people write it and be in charge of having it get done if need be. Because I'm a believer that people join and become members because they enjoy feeling useful.
Tom?
Or-
Did you raise your hand, Tom?
Well, at the end of this discussion, since it's been brought up about the call the question issue that Todd brought up, I've gotten out my little thing and I have a brief paragraph to read that would clarify it. I don't want you all to go away from this meeting with any kind of misunderstanding about calling the question. So when
Okay,
this is over, let me make sure you all know what the answer is.
okay. Any other thoughts, comments, ideas?
Well, just with regard to what Catherine has suggested, and she and I talked about this a little bit, another possibility is to have links in the Sun that could be a list of the items that you described, Catherine, and then could there be links that would take people anytime they got a Sun to this description you're speaking of, Catherine? How difficult would that be, and would that help achieve your objective?
Yeah, that sounds like a great idea. I think that would work very well. But I also think if it's just on the webpage, it's easier because a lot of people don't even know about the Sun. If they're just there for their first, second, third, or fourth time coming to church.
Yeah, they might not be getting it. Right. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Catherine. All right. Tom Mosier.
Okay, well, I'm reading right out of the current revised rules, Robert's rules. Question, must debate on a motion stop immediately as soon as any member calls the question? Answer, it's a fairly common misconception that after debate is continued for some time, if a member shouts out question, or I call the question, debate must immediately cease and the chair must put the pending motion to a vote. This is simply not the case. Any member who wishes to force an end to debate must first obtain the floor by being duly recognized by the chair and must then move the previous question. Such a motion must be seconded and then adopted by a 2/3 vote or by unanimous consent. It's not in order to interrupt a speaker with cries of question or call. So, you know, what Mary Lou Johnson, who is famous for saying this, is calling the question is messy, I think was almost her exact words, because it requires it. You won't be recognized if you simply shout out, I call the question. That doesn't work. You have to raise your hand, get recognized, and then say, I move the previous question. It has to be seconded, and that it's not debatable. You just have to, it just has to pass by a 2/3 vote. So there's a process, just as Todd says, but the reason, you know, it is kind of a messy thing. It's not debatable, so you don't take a lot of time doing it, but it does need a second. Someone else, at least one other person, has to agree with you, and then it's a 2/3 vote to cut off debate. So just so everybody knows.
Thank you, Tom. Nice and clear. I love that there's a process for just about anything in the world.
Yeah, somewhere in the 700 pages, it's there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and probably at the beginning of the meeting, that should just be made clear. That's how
Right.
it happens. And if it doesn't happen that way, it doesn't happen at all.
Yeah, and when Mary Lou would say, she encourages not to do that, instead with about another 45 seconds, you could say that if you want to do it, this is the process.
Yeah. Okay, well, I will just remind everybody before we close for the night that our next Board of Trustees meeting will be January 26th, 6 to 8 p.m. That's 2022.
Whoa.
I know. Of course, we'll be continuing our Monday evening gallivanting. And our senior minister will not be joining us at that meeting. He'll be on sabbatical. So perhaps we'll set the agenda the week before, maybe even at a bylaws workshop, because we'll be starting to really get moving closer to our workshop sessions with the congregation by that time too. So
Yeah. Well, just as an aside, Lynn, so I didn't have an agenda. And I wonder, isn't it possible, do you have an agenda made up early enough that they could go out in the Tuesday announcements for the all of the links, you know, for all the meetings, so that it could be attached right under the link for the board meeting? Because it wasn't there. And that's how I get to the board meeting.
So we typically meet the Wednesday before, and this time we met on Thursday, but I'm pretty sure I sent it to Rebecca. Well, it would have been Friday, so she's not there on Friday.
Yeah.
It's typically there, isn't it? I thought
Well,
it was included.
Somehow I have gotten it in the past. I don't know, but
Yeah.
this particular time it wasn't in the Zoom links that come out on Tuesdays.
I've never seen it in the actual Zoom links, but I think I've seen it. Well, I don't know where I've seen it, but I know I've seen it. But if it was not included this month, I bet it was my fault because I
Okay.
got it to her on a Friday.
Okay,
She
so
should have
my,
had it.
my question is, if you're inviting the congregation to come to your board meetings, it seems reasonable that they should be able to have an agenda. And then my question is, how would you get an agenda then?
Yeah, I didn't know that it wasn't included. I thought it was. So I'll check with Rebecca too
Okay.
on that. I think it typically is though.
Okay,
All right, are we adjourning? Are we ready to adjourn?
Oh,
Good
can
night, every-
can I add one more thing?
Yes, Craig?
Merry Christmas.
I like your tree, Craig.
Yay.
And
Nice
Happy New
tree.
Year, Happy Holiday, Happy Hanukkah.
Happy holidays,
Kwan-
everybody.
Happy
Yes.
Kwanzaa.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye, Dorothy.